Hey everybody, this is Elizabeth from Silvernest Homeschooling Mom of 4. We've been homeschooling for 12 years now, and we are taking you through our shelf of books that I use to hold for the future or that we've already read through, things that we've loved, things that my kids are storing because they have other books on their shelf currently. And this is mostly my animal shelf. So when I think about categorizing, that's always hard. But in here, I've just tried to put books that have to do with animal adventures. And so two of them we're going to start with are E.B. White's Stuart Little and The Trumpet of the Swan. And so these two books have to do with Stuart Little is about a boy who's the size of a mouse, who's actually a mouse, who goes off on great adventures, even though he's small. And Trumpet of the Swan is about a swan that actually plays the trumpet, trying to impress his friends. He's super funny. They're always funny books. E.B. White does a great job. And so, yeah, highly recommend not just those, but also the other books that he has written. All right, we also have the Four Seasons and Brambley Hedge. I love the artwork in here. There was a cover on it at one point, but easy reader, more about the beauty of things and yummy food and adventures all throughout the year. And so more sweetness than escapades, but good. This one should probably not be on the shelf. The Swiftly Tilting Planet by Madeline L'Engle. We own all of these in some form or another, and we really enjoy them. I do like to find hardbacks if I can for free and upgrade my library. Meryl of Redwall. This is my copy. We took you through the Redwall series on another shelf. We own almost all of them in hardback, but this one was the one I read before I married my husband, and was my absolute favorite, so I kept a copy. I like to have paperbacks on the opposite of the hardbacks because I can throw them in my backpack, take them on a camping trip, that kind of thing, and not worry so much about them being damaged. We have another Lloyd Alexander, The Time Cat. It's about time travel. He's the one that wrote the Prydain series. And then Marguerite Henry. So she wrote Misty of Shintotig, which you will see on here, but she also wrote Sea Star, An Orphan of Shintotig, and Misty of Shintotig. Yes, we have read these. I loved them as a kid, and my kids enjoyed them as well. Stormy, Misty's Foal, which was my favorite of the series. She wrote a whole bunch more, but those are the ones that we own currently. Let's see, we also have Basil of Baker Street, which was turned into a Disney movie, but before that it was just a fun story of a mouse detective. And 101 Dalmatians. Now this was a sleeper surprise for me. I got it because of the Disney tie-in cover. I like old Disney, not modern, anything newer than probably the 85, 86, maybe the 90s. But this one is an amazing story. This read aloud by Dodie Smith, or having your kids read this book if you can find a copy. The book is so much better than the movie, so full of great conversations, great discussions. There's even a part where they go into a church and find a safe place and a haven. That's really sweet. The Bear Party, this one was mine when I was a kid, and it's about a bunch of bears who their identity ends up being in their costumes that they wear. The Foolish Rabbit. I think I showed you some of these on another shelf. These are hard to find these days, but they're all about these three bunnies and the different adventures, and they always have a God lesson to learn at the end. In this case, the rabbit eats too many bad berries. James and the Giant Peach. So I decided that the bugs were considered animals. Another one of those books that I promised my daughter wasn't sad, and then at the beginning, like, his parents died and he has to leave with these horrible ants. So, but then they go on these adventures. I always forget about that part. And we have Molly. I don't think anybody's read this one. Story of a dog who rescues stray cats. A blank book, because sometimes those get put in here. Watership Down. I have multiple, if you can see back there, copies of Watership Down. We read this out loud to my kids when they were sick one winter, and it brought in so many amazing conversations. If you want to talk about leadership, this is the story of rabbits going through various adventures, but based on the way rabbits really behave, but also different kinds of systems for how to run different, like, countries or towns or cities, And there's The Dictator. There's just so many things in here. I highly recommend it being one of your high school, middle school reads. Just really, really. And then Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. Also a movie, but way better as a book. The sequels are okay. This one is really, really good. I highly recommend that one for your elementary school students, either to read out loud themselves to read themselves or for you to read out loud. The Miss Bianca series, these might be harder to find. They're also based on they were written and then the Disney movies were based on them. There's a whole series by Marjorie Sharp. My kids absolutely love these, so I actually started trying to collect 2 copies so that 2 of them can have them. I remember enjoying them as a kid, but they have way more adventures than the Rescuers in the Disney version. And the mice work a lot harder and have a lot more interesting parts of it all. A Wolf Called Wander. This one was a gift to us, and so one of my kids, we read it for Pacific Northwest History. They thought it was okay. They weren't super thrilled. But then again, when you assign something for school, but they did read it. Further Tales of Uncle Remus. We have read a few of those. And a copy of That Cat. My kids call this the That Cat book. Again, there was the book and then there was the show. I'm trying to get a copy of the books. There was a whole series of them before the movie was made. And I'm trying to find them, but I'm having a hard time. And so every time I order them, they end up being back to the movie version. But still interesting. Then we have the complete Dr. Dolittle collection. Way more books than were ever in the movies of these. And so my kids like them, but they wish they weren't. They said these are just too big to read comfortably. They're to hold them open and to go through them and read them out. But they did like the stories, and if I find them individually, they wish that I had done it that way instead. But I have had kids who have read the most of them. My other copy of Watership Down, and then I have a 3rd copy downstairs. And then The Best of James Herriot. If you've never read any, this is about a man, based mostly on a true story, who was a veterinarian in England. And so it's the stories of what all the adventures and the hijinks that happened as a vet. And so easier to read to your kids in this form, but they do have children's books of one story. So you can, at the library or whatever, you can just check out one story. For example, this one is that's kind of the grown-up version, and then this one is the kids version. So you'll see they'll take 1 or 2 stories and take the time to illustrate it, and just some really great heartwarming tales. There is a couple of different BBC productions of this as well that are super funny. But if you have a child who loves animals and is thinking of becoming a vet, this is historically accurate and historically fun. So that is what is on this shelf. Hope you guys are having a great day. Hope some of those are interesting to you. And we have 2 shelves to go, and we'll talk to you soon.